Everyone laughed when he stood up in court, until the judge read his credentials. Rain lashed against the tin roof of Chinedu Raphael's small home in Lagos. The early morning downpour drummed a relentless rhythm on the corrugated sheets. Inside, a dim lamp flickered, illuminating the stacks of law books, papers, and notes scattered across the wooden desk. Chinedu's fingers traced the lines of his handwritten arguments for the umpteenth time. He paused to look out the window. The street below was a river of umbrellas and honking buses, puddles reflecting the neon signs from shops shuttered against the storm. Even the chaos outside couldn't shake his focus. Today was the day he would face giants in a courtroom. Giants who represented power, money, and influence that dwarfed his 17 years of life. Chinedu knelt beside his small backpack, which carried not just books, but years of dreams, sacrifices, and late nights. He whispered a quiet prayer. Father, let my courage match my preparation. Let justice guide me today. His mother, a soft-spoken woman wearing a faded wrapper and jailie, appeared at the doorway. Her eyes shimmered with worry. Chinedu, are you sure? They will laugh at you, she said, her voice barely audible over the storm. I know, Mama, Chinedu replied calmly. But if I don't stand now, who will? Madam Adeyemi has no one else. This is bigger than me. The journey to the Lagos High Court was treacherous. Puddles soaked his worn shoes. He navigated through rivers of water, clutching his backpack tightly. The High Court rose ahead like a fortress in the rain, the marble steps glistening, the Nigerian flags snapping in the wind. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Lawyers whispered, shuffled papers, and adjusted their expensive suits. The air smelled of damp paper and polished wood. Judge Ibrahim Okon, grey hair immaculately combed, sat at the bench with his thick-rimmed glasses, observing everyone with piercing scrutiny. Chinedu entered quietly but with deliberate confidence. Heads turned, whispers rippled through the courtroom. Who is this boy? He placed his backpack on the floor, adjusted his shirt, and stepped to the podium. Good morning, Your Lordship. My name is Chinedu Raphael, and I represent Madame Funke Adeyemi in this land dispute case. Laughter erupted, snickers from the lawyers. Even a clerk shook his head. Judge Okon's voice cut through the room. Excuse me, are you her lawyer? Where is the real counsel? Madame Adeyemi, sitting in the back, rose slowly. He is my lawyer, Your Lordship, the only one who would take my case. The judge's eyes narrowed. After a tense inspection of the credentials, he said, Very well, but know this, your age will not earn you any leniency. Chinedu nodded, hiding the adrenaline behind a calm demeanor. Focus. This is about her, not you. The stakes were immense. Madame Adeyemi's land had been in her family for generations, predating Nigeria's independence. Losing it meant losing not just property, but heritage and identity. AgroCorp, a sprawling conglomerate, sought to convert the ancestral land into a commercial complex, erasing history. For Chinedu, defeat meant humiliation, ruined reputation, and the loss of his first big case. AgroCorp's lawyers attacked immediately. This is absurd, sneered Mr. Olumide, the lead counsel. Your Lordship, how can a mere boy challenge our firm? Snickers and murmurs filled the room. Chinedu's hands gripped his notes. He had anticipated every attack, every condescending comment. He began presenting meticulously. Historical property records, cross-referenced deeds, and legal precedents even senior lawyers had overlooked. Each argument hit like precision strikes, forcing AgroCorp's lawyers to falter. Then came the first twist. AgroCorp presented a sudden new document, claiming Madame Adeyemi had relinquished her land. Gasps echoed. For a moment, Chinedu's confidence wavered. But he noticed the date, a public holiday, when government offices were closed. "This is a forgery, Your Lordship," he stated, holding the document steadily. The room froze. Judge Okon leaned forward. AgroCorp's counsel went pale. Hours passed. Rain lashed against the courtroom windows, echoing the storm outside. Chinedu moved with calculated calm, each argument precise, each counterpoint sharper than the last. Yet the battle was far from over. Outside the courtroom, whispers of AgroCorp's power circulated. Rumors of threats had reached Chinedu's ears. An intimidating message left at his home, a bribe subtly suggested to abandon the case. For a moment, fear clawed at him, but he pressed it down. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. Inside, the courtroom erupted into chaos when AgroCorp's senior lawyer, Mr. Olumide, tried a psychological attack. "Young man, do you even understand the laws you quote? Property law is not a game for children," he sneered. Chinedu looked him squarely in the eye. "Your Lordship, the law applies equally to all, regardless of age, and facts are facts. Shall I present the unchallenged deeds from Ogun State Archives?" The judge leaned forward, intrigued. Chinedu had anticipated this. With calm authority, he produced the historical land records, cross-referenced with independent government sources, exposing AgroCorp's oversight. As the trial continued, Chinedu's reputation began to shift. Even skeptical reporters began whispering, eyes wide with amazement. The boy was dismantling a corporate giant. Meanwhile, outside the courthouse, a sleek black car waited. A sharply dressed man leaned against it, watching, noting the boy's every move. The subtle threats had become more direct. AgroCorp was desperate. During a brief recess, Chinedu sat with Madame Adeyemi in a small, quiet corner of the courthouse. She clutched his hands, her eyes glistening. "You must understand, Chinedu," she said, voice trembling. "This land is more than property. It holds the graves of my ancestors, the foundation of our family's history. My grandfather built the first heart here. Losing it would erase generations of memory." Chinedu nodded solemnly. He felt the weight of responsibility settle deeper on his shoulders. This was not just a legal battle. It was a fight for identity, for culture, for justice itself. He promised silently, "I will not fail her. I cannot." Just as Chinedu began presenting the final bundle of evidence, AgroCorp introduced a surprise witness, a local clerk claiming to have signed the land transfer himself. The courtroom buzzed. The momentum seemed to tip against Chinedu. The judge raised a hand, granting Chinedu the floor. He approached the witness carefully, asking one pointed question after another. Soon, contradictions appeared, small errors in dates, mismatched signatures, and ultimately, the witness admitted confusion under pressure. Gasps swept the room. Chinedu's calculated calm turned what could have been disaster into a moment of triumph, reasserting control of the narrative. Late afternoon, Chinedu stepped out briefly, rain still drumming against the windows. He found a quiet spot in the hallway. Breathing heavily, doubts and fears surfaced. What if I make a mistake? What if she loses everything? He knelt, whispering a prayer. Memories of his father's advice came flooding back. "Knowledge alone is not enough, my son. You must have courage, persistence, and a clear heart." Refreshed and resolute, he returned to the courtroom, ready for the final showdown. The courtroom was silent. Rain hammered the courthouse roof like the drumbeat of fate itself. Chinedu stood at the podium, his final arguments ready. Every eye in the room, judges, lawyers, journalists, was fixed on him. "Your Lordship," Chinedu began, voice steady and clear, "this is not merely a case about land. It is about justice, heritage, and the principle that no amount of money can erase what is rightfully owned." He laid out the evidence meticulously: property deeds, government records, sworn affidavits. Each point dismantled AgroCorp's arguments with precision. Every lawyer in the room leaned forward, some in disbelief. Mr. Olumide tried one last attack. "Objection! Your Lordship, the boy." Judge Okon slammed his gavel, cutting him off. "This courtroom will hear the facts, not the theatrics." Chinedu's voice rang louder, firmer, unstoppable. He exposed inconsistencies in AgroCorp's documents, proved the forged signatures, and revealed the truth about the false witness. By the end, even the most cynical lawyers and reporters in the gallery were forced to nod in reluctant respect. The room fell silent as Judge Okon rose. The moment had arrived. Every breath seemed suspended. Chinedu's heart pounded, yet his face remained composed. After reviewing all evidence and hearing arguments, Judge Okon declared, voice booming, "This court rules in favor of the plaintiff, Madam Funke Adeyemi. AgroCorp's claim is dismissed." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, cheers, and shouts of astonishment filled the space. Madam Adeyemi wept, grabbing Chinedu's hands. "You saved me," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. News cameras swarmed, flashing headlines exploding across the nation. A 17-year-old prodigy shocks Lagos High Court. Universities invited him to speak. Newspapers heralded him as the miracle of Nigerian courts. But Chinedu returned each evening to his modest home, books and backpack always at hand. Humility grounded him. Years later, he would become one of Nigeria's most respected legal minds. Yet the story of that rainy Lagos morning, the day a boy walked into court and walked out a legend, remained etched in the hearts of all who witnessed it. In every village in Ogun State, people told the story of Chinedu, the boy who faced giants armed with courage, knowledge, and integrity. And as the elders would say, a lesson that transcends generations. No matter how tall the tree grows, its roots remain in the earth.